Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, but we cannot see you, Avi. We do not know how you look like.
Stick on your video.
You'll see what I look like in the end, Kapil. Yeah. So, okay. Hey guys, my name is Avi and I'm a junior developer at the Open Food Network right now. And I'm doing a talk on StimulusReflex and CableReady. So this is a very small talk and I'm just going to discuss about what these tools are and how you can use them in your applications. And, you know, well, maybe there's also a question I'm trying to answer, I guess, is that whether they can help you create a better reactive act than React itself. So let's get started. So what is StimulusReflex, right? So StimulusReflex is a library that enables you to create reactive websites using, not using JavaScript. So it uses the HTML over the wire approach of server-side rendering and triggering DOM updates through the server itself, and it was inspired by the live view framework in the Elixir community. And the goals of the StimulusReflex, the creators of the StimulusReflex and CableReady folks have always been to make developing with Rails the most productive and the enjoyable option available, which I think is a really great goal. So, you know, the apparent question is, how do you get started? What are the basics that you need to know to use StimulusReflex in your projects, right? And the basics are really simple. So all you need is a data reflex attribute in your HTML. I hope that this code snippet is readable. In my feedback, I was told that it would be better if I could make them sideways, but you know, I just could not fit them sideways, so they are still vertical. So in the top, we have the HTML, and in your HTML element, you just need to declare a data reflex attribute, right? A data reflex attribute with a value of the event handler that you want, so in the data reflex attribute, you have you specify the event handler you want the reflex to get triggered by, right? So in the example, I triggered the say hi reflex when a user clicks on the element, right? So when clicking on the element, trigger the say hi, run the code in the say hi method of the greet reflex, right? So it's really declarative. You can just look at the HTML and then just, you know, find out what files you are trying to look up and what methods you need to. And, you know, this feature I really like because I've been working on an Angular code base right now. And, you know, it's really hard to find which files are, you know, triggering all the JavaScript things, right? So, and in the bottom, we have the greet reflex, which goes under app reflexes mostly. And, you know, inside the greet reflex, we have the say hi method, which gets triggered when you click on the element. So, this is a very small example of how you could, how you can use StimulusReflex to make something like this in your apps. So what we have here is an input element. And as you type in the input element, we have two divs which are being updated. The first div is being updated with the actual value of the input element. And the second div, the backwards div, is being updated with the value, with the reversed value, all right? So if I type in CAR, one of the divs is just gonna update with CAR, but the other div is gonna update with RAC, so CAR.reverse. And as you can see in this GIF, I'm typing Namaste, and one of the divs is updating with Namaste, but the other div has Namaste.reverse, right? So before I show you the StimulusReflex implementation of this. Yeah, so before I show you the StimulusReflex, I'm so sorry. Okay, So before I show you the stimulus-reflex implementation of this, let's just look at what a stimulus.js implementation of this would look like, right? So in stimulus.js, you'd probably do something like this, right? So you'd have two targets. These are just the two divs, the forwards and backwards div. And then you have a words method. And in the words method, all you're doing is you're taking out the value from the input element. And then in the forward target div, you're setting its text content to the actual value of the input. And then in the backward target div, the div that is going to update with the input value dot reverse, you're just gonna update it with the reversed value, right? So this is also a good implementation, I guess. It's a fine implementation. I think it's a bit primitive because it's 2022 and it's still using JavaScript. And the second thing that I really hate about this is that if you look at the last line, what I'm doing is I'm setting the value of the backward target text contents to the value of the input divs dot reverse, right? But the problem is JavaScript does not have a native implementation of reverse for a string. So you gotta, flesh out your own implementation of reverse and then put it there, which frankly, as a Ruby dev, that's really infuriating, So what would the same feature look like if this was implemented in stimulus-reflex? So the first thing is there, you would not need to write a single line of JavaScript. And you heard that right. You will not need to write a single line of JavaScript, okay? And it's going to be super fast. So this is what the implementation looks like. I know it's a bit too, so I'll just walk you through this slowly. So if you look at the top code example where there's the HTML, in the second line, there's the input element and we have the most important, the data reflex in there. And we're simply saying at key up, so whenever somebody types into the input, run the words method on the example reflex, right? That's all we're saying, okay? And in the example reflex, all we are doing is we are setting the instant variable called words into the element's value, all right? So the element here is just the input element, right? So, and that's it, guys. That's how stimulus-reflex is able to just update the whole, update the two divs with the values that we need, right? And if you again look at the HTML, we have the first div that the forwards div is just evaluating the words instance variable, and then the backwards div is just evaluating the words instance variable and reversing it, okay? And to really get into how stimulus-reflex does this, and I don't know if you will be surprised or not, but in this scenario, stimulus-reflex is only updating these two elements. So it is only at each keyword keep up event, stimulus-reflex is only re-rendering the div with the class of forward and the div with the class of backward, okay? And this is why it is so fast, all right? This is why it is so fast. It does not, it's really fast, and that's how it's doing it. And the technology that the library that stimulus-reflex uses to update the DOM so fast is called Morph or Morph DOM, and it is a JavaScript library that makes changes to the existing DOM in a very efficient manner. You guys can just go check it out. It's a really cool piece of technology people have developed. So that's a brief intro into stimulus-reflex and how you can get started with it. I'll leave links to the docs and the Discord channel in the chat and in the Slack channel. So let's move on to CableReady. So CableReady is a Ruby gem that has been around for a long time. It was released in May 2017. And the main thing CableReady does is it lets you as a Rails developer trigger client-side DOM changes from the server. All right. So client-side DOM changes like replacing a div, replacing the text content, appending, and then removing a class, adding a class. The native browser APIs, the DOM APIs, right? So it provides you with methods that you can call in the server. So in a Ruby class, you're calling these methods, and those methods trigger client-side DOM changes, right? These are a list of DOM mutations that CableReady has made available to you. So as you can see, there's append, there's inner HTML, morph is, again, the morph term, it's not a DOM API. There's outer HTML, prepend, remove text content, right? And then, you can add and remove CSS class, you can set an attribute, you can set a property, you can set inline styles from the server itself, and then you can also create custom events to the dispatch event API, right? And you can also do browser manipulations, right? You can push state, you can scroll into view, you can set cookies, and well, I was like blown away when I found out about this. So you can also send notifications, display notifications through the server. So you can console log, you can display a notification, you can play sounds. And so I just wanted to share with you a small example of how you can use CableReady to call the DOM API in the server itself. And here's that. So this is the same example reflex we saw a few slides earlier. And on line 5, I just call CableReady.console log message hello Ruby. And I think you can take a guess what this what this small line is doing, right? It's just logging to the console, hello Ruby. So that's CableReady. And well, it is, well, this is all the Ruby code, right, guys? I have not, like in my examples of StimulusReflex, there has not been a single JavaScript code written. But I think it's very important to remember that in the end, all this is actually just JavaScript, all right? And so there is no, there's no, like the folks at StimulusReflex and CableReady did not create a custom event or did not patch the browser itself or something that, they did not monkey patch to provide you this functionality, all right? So they have gone to pains to just use the native DOM APIs in the end so that you can use this in Rails, right? So in the end, all this is still JavaScript, right? So JavaScript is really important. And if you can take a look at line 465, you can see that in the end, the console.log method provided by CableReady, in the end, just what it does is it calls this method, and in line 465, all it's doing is console.log message. So, so this is StimulusReflex and CableReady, and I've seen a lot of people I think a lot of people only think that this technology is not really cannot be used in production apps, but there are already a lot of production apps that are using this, and there's Trivi, and there's Podia, and then there's Wine, and there's NFT marketplace that are already using this, and there are a lot of other sites. So take it for a spin, guys. That's all I'm saying. I don't think you'll regret it. And lastly, so I hope you enjoyed the presentation. You can find me on email, actually, inscription4@outlook.com, and you can find me in Discord as BinaryKit, and on GitHub, I'm also as BinaryKit, and I work for the Open Food Network, and I'm a fan of StimulusReflex. And on the right, you can see my photo. So thanks.